Chapter 10. When I recovered, I found myself surrounded by the people of the inn. I escaped from them to the room where lay the body of Elizabeth, my love, my wife, so lately living, so dear, so worthy. Blood. That's all Justine noticed once she regained consciousness on the floor of the bridal suite. But whose blood? Not Victor's. He stood near the door, pistol in hand, illuminated by moonlight, his shadowed face like a skull, his eyes wide, senseless. Then his slim body shook as though jolted by electricity.
"Elizabeth!"
he cried, rushing toward the bed.
"Beloved wife!"
And he'd fainted. Justine crawled toward the bed, her head light with pain, shards of glass cracking beneath her elbows and knees. The only sign of the monster was a trail of blood leading toward a broken window. Where had he gone? After hearing Elizabeth scream, Justine had burst into the room. She'd seen Elizabeth stab the monster. Instead of debilitating him, it only enraged him. The monster released a second scream before Justine felt something knock her off her feet. Something that felt like a punch made of fire. She didn't pay mind to the pain, not yet. How could she? Elizabeth, where was she? At last, Justine found her, this woman who'd saved her life, who'd been her only true friend. Elizabeth lay lifeless and inanimate across the bed, her head hanging down, her pale and distorted features half covered by her gold hair, bruises rising on her neck. But Justine's attention was pulled away by pain. Blood, her blood. It gushed between her fingers, flooding her breast. She grabbed her right shoulder, which burned with the flames of 100 torches. Victor had shot her, not the monster. Victor had kept her from protecting Elizabeth. But where was Victor now? She forced her gaze toward the door. Victor still lay on the floor, still unconscious. He whimpered as 6 men burst through the door, shouting and bearing weapons. The rush of their footsteps shook the wood floor of the bridal suite like an earthquake.
"Help me!"
Justine gasped, her bloody hand clasping her right shoulder. The pain had grown beyond anything she'd ever experienced, even during that miscarriage. A portly, grey-haired man rushed to her side. The hotel proprietor. Justine recalled him showing Elizabeth and Victor into the bridal chamber. "He needs a doctor," the proprietor said, pointing to Justine. He? Justine remembered. She was dressed as a boy. "Come, can you stand?"
No,
Justine moaned.
"Save her!"
She raised her left arm toward the bed, toward Elizabeth. Too late. Someone had draped a white handkerchief over Elizabeth's face. For some reason, this made what had occurred all the more awful, like Elizabeth no longer existed in any form save as a corpse. Hatred and anger rose to join Justine's sorrow.
"I must kill the monster. But how?"
Victor staggered to his feet.
"I know where the murderer is. He's been stabbed. He still lives."
He pointed at the smashed window.
"There he is. See, he's silhouetted against the moon. He's pointing at me."
He pulled out his pistol and shot again, drawing more people into the bridal suite, who milled in confusion.
"He's dived into the lake. Follow me."
The hotel proprietor abandoned Justine to follow Victor.
"I will kill the monster. I must."
She reached for something, anything, to pull herself to her feet. The room circled and turned grey. She dragged herself toward the door, leaving sanguinary handprints along the wood floor. Pain. Then the pain turned to something else. Something more. Something less. Something dark. Justine awoke on a muddy rural road rutted with carriage wheels. It was still night, but it was raining anew, though gentler than before. How had she gotten there? How much time had passed? She seemed to recall somehow staggering from the hotel, somehow finding her way toward the road.
"Doesn't matter. Elizabeth is dead."
A sob overtook Justine, one that felt too large to be contained by her wounded body, before a burning pain returned, one more powerful than sorrow. The pain radiated from her right shoulder down her arm, along the curvature of her spine. She stared at her hands. Blood. Even in the rain, her hands were drenched. She'd never be cleansed of it. And then she was weeping in earnest. Elizabeth was dead. Elizabeth was gone. All goodness in her life was gone. Justine hadn't saved Elizabeth, the woman who'd saved her from death. She'd made it worse. Victor had shot Justine, distracting attention from the monster, while he strangled Elizabeth. Justine shut her eyes. All she saw was Elizabeth, her bloodless arms and form flung by the murderer against her bridal bier. Justine's lungs seized.
I'm dying, but the monster still lives.
Hot tears onto her cheeks, her hands. Somehow this spurred her lungs into breath, like a baby emerging from womb to air. She raised her eyes toward the road. A road marker. Avion, Geneva. Which direction? Not Avion. Justine began to crawl west, toward Geneva. The green scent of rot rose from the earth, the hiss of wind.
I can go no further.
She curled into a ball, too exhausted to even sleep. Hours must have passed. Something soft surrounded her. Something emerging from the fog. Fur, the color of rust. Not blood. A fox bearing kits. The fox mother circled and lay beside her, whimpering, her kits spilling about her. Justine laid her hands in their fur. How soft they were, how warm. The lapping of rough tongues against her face, against her wound. The fog cleared and the moon reappeared, brighter than ever. Within that moon, a hooded figure approached.
The monster? It must be.
The fox raced away, her kits trailing and yipping.
He's probably already killed Victor. I'll kill him before I die.
The knife, where was it?
Elizabeth, I gave it to her.
How could she have forgotten? Anyway, the knife hadn't saved Elizabeth, nor had it kept the monster from escaping. And now he'd found her. She'd join Elizabeth, William, Victor, and Henry as his victims. As Justine prepared for death, memory overtook her. She returned to the Bellerive garden on that snowy night years earlier, when she was a child, when she'd believed she'd been chased by a golem. The fateful night that had marked the start of her life with the Frankensteins, a life that brought blessings and curses. Now here she was again in the night, alone, pursued. Her end had joined her beginning, like a snake swallowing its tail from one of Victor's alchemy books. The rain slowed. Clouds shifted from the moon. A shadowy figure emerged from the fog. The monster. She could no longer deny his presence.
Get it over with, then,
she muttered.
No more.
An end.
My second death, she thought. So be it.
She rolled onto her back, lifting her chin to bare her neck for him. How she'd changed since her hanging. The last time she was to die, she'd confessed to gain absolution before God. Now she only wanted everything brought to an end. Any God who'd let Elizabeth die wasn't a kind or just God. Justine had lost everything, even her faith. The monster drew close enough that Justine recognized his watery eyes, his festering wounds, his scarred face and black hair. But first, she had 3 last words for him. I hate you. The monster flinched. He knelt beside her. He was taller than she recalled, more powerful, more menacing. She readied herself for the blow to come. But as abruptly as he'd approached, he turned away. She watched with wonder as he fled into the woods with his face hidden inside his hands, looking for all the world like Adam expelled from Eden. After this, everything fell away like a book snapping shut. Chapter 11. What then became of me? I know not. I lost sensation, and chains and darkness were the only objects that pressed upon me. For they had called me mad, and during many months, as I understood, A solitary cell had been my habitation. Justine wouldn't again encounter the monster until she located Victor. Victor, who spent months in an asylum mad after Elizabeth's murder. Or so Justine learned after weeks of recovery from that gunshot. A rustic had found her unconscious body on the road between Evian and Geneva and nursed her back to health. The first time Justine saw Victor after Elizabeth's death, it was a warm April day laden with soft breezes, birdsong, and the scent of lilacs. The asylum where he abided stank of urine. Shouts and screams rang against the lime-washed walls, which appeared stained with human excrement. Justine refused to turn back.
"It was you after all,"
Victor said once they were led to a small room, separated from the other inmates by only a barred wall. In a corner, an orderly armed with a wooden staff stood barely beyond ear reach.
"I recognized you, though you're dressed like a boy."
"It's me. I survived." For what more could she say?
"It's you. You."
Victor's mouth shifted. As he struggled to speak, Justine took in the man who'd been Caroline's son and Elizabeth's husband, the man responsible for so much mayhem. Victor's pupils were huge, his voice monotone. He was drugged. A tear lingered at the edge of his eye. How different he was from when she'd first met him 15 years earlier. Now he appeared damned, cursed.
"I'm so happy,"
he continued in that monotone, his fingers curling on the table. 1, 2, 3, he tapped.
"So happy. I thought I'd imagined you that night after,"
he drew a breath,
"my wedding. Especially since they hanged you. Yet you survived, though God knows how."
Another deep inhale.
"You're the only one he hasn't destroyed. God save you for that."
"He wasn't the one who let me be hanged for a murder I didn't commit," she answered, her anger rising. "Nor did he shoot me with a pistol and leave me to rot." The wound in her shoulder still ached most days. His fingers silenced.
I shot you?"
"Don't you remember, Victor?" Victor swayed, blinking slowly.
"I remember little of that night. Nor do I remember much after the death of my father. Yes, he's gone too. And now I am here."
"Monsieur Frankenstein is dead?" This Justine hadn't known. Grief shook her. Alphonse had been kind to her, especially after the death of Caroline when she'd felt so responsible.
"He killed him too?" "Indirectly."
A deep breath.
"My father didn't survive the news of Elizabeth's murder. A heart attack. He died in my arms several days afterward. And if I am to be honest, I wish I'd died with him."
Victor swiped at his eyes before forcing a rigid smile.
"Tell me, how did you survive your hanging?"
"I'm not going to waste time explaining a miracle to you." Victor's mood shifted like quicksilver.
"It was Elizabeth, wasn't it? She saved you, though I don't understand how. She was always so angelic, so obedient, perfect. She tricked us all."
Another laugh.
"She was cunning in her way, wasn't she? Secretive. All those drawings and paintings in that sketchbook? I found it after her death inside a locked drawer in her room. Did she ever show them to you? The drawings of the dead birds and nude women? They shocked me."
"Only the botanical ones."
"Ah, that makes sense. Well, more fool me. I should have suspected there was more to her. As for you, I couldn't understand why she'd fled to Lake Como after your hanging. Somehow she rescued you. Do you know, I'd even wondered if she loved Henry, and that's why she ran there. Now he's dead too."
Victor continued on, affectless again.
"All past. All gone. All dead."
Yes, all were past and gone and dead, save for Ernest. Justine couldn't bring herself to inquire as to his fate. Victor stared down at his clasped hands. His tone turned wistful.
"It's good to see you, Justine. I appreciate it. You took a risk coming here. What if someone recognized you?"
She shrugged. I'm of the old world before the revolution. In this new world, anyone who knew me is gone, but you, well, anyone who matters.
Yet you disguise yourself in trousers and the red cap of a revolutionary.
The world is not kind to my gender, even in this new world.
Clever, Justine. Quick as ever. Henry would be so proud. And to think we once considered you simple. You proved us all wrong, didn't you?
Victor waved a hand as though to stir the air.
Well, I won't tell anyone you're still alive.
Justine's anger returned. How kind!
I'd never expect sarcasm from you.
I'd never expected either. But then I'd never expected to witness Elizabeth murdered on her wedding night. She leaned in, her words hissing. We may talk about new worlds and old times, but it doesn't matter. The loss remains the same. Elizabeth might have lived if not for you. I might have saved her.
Victor slumped against his chair. No one could have saved her. Not against him.
You shot me before I could protect her.
It wouldn't have made a difference.
Victor's tears returned.
It was all my fault. I understand this now. I thought he was after me, not her. How foolish I was, how selfish. When I heard her scream that night, the truth rushed into my mind. My arms dropped, the motion of every muscle and fibre suspended. I could feel the blood trickling in my veins and tingling in the extremities of my limbs. Great God, why did I not then expire? Why am I here to relate the destruction of the best and kindest creature on earth? Now all is lost. Even Ernest is gone.
He murdered your brother too?
This Justine had not expected. She covered her eyes. No. Ernest joined the army, Victor continued, his voice monotone again. He didn't survive the winter. Weak lungs. He grimaced. Regardless, I blame him for Ernest's passing. Ernest wouldn't have left home if William still lived. He loved William so much. He would have remained in Geneva to watch him grow up.
Justine couldn't bear it, nor could she bear to leave. But you survived.
Yes, I survived, Justine. Which is perhaps the worst punishment of all.
Victor met Justine's glare.
My family is destroyed. All of the Frankensteins gone. All the servants ran away, even Sophie, too frightened to remain. Lord knows where she went. But he remains. He's the last. He's survived. Along with yourself. How strange to realize that she, Victor, and his monster were the last of the Frankensteins, though none of them shared blood. As for the monster, one question weighed Justine.
Why'd you do it, Victor?
Do what?
Victor rubbed his brow.
Oh, create him, you mean? You mean that demon, that monster, that cursed Lucifer who calls himself my son? He set his palm on Justine's shoulder. I may as well tell you the truth. It was because of my mother.
But your mother was the most wonderful woman to walk this earth.
Victor laughed wildly, no longer modulating his voice. Exactly. After my mother's death, all I could do was look at everyone and think, one day you will die. And you. And you. Victor pointed at the asylum patients on the other side of the barred wall, all in various stages of madness and undress. For everyone, yes, everyone we love will die. For death is our common fate. He jabbed at Justine's arm to punctuate every word. Each and every one of us ends up beneath the earth to become food for maggots.
Such is the way of life,
Justine said, shoving his hand away. But did it have to be thus? Did my mother have to die? Does anyone? After her death, I mulled whether there was a way no one would ever suffer loss again. And then I realized what the root of mortality was. His voice dropped. We are all born of woman. Created of woman. The female way was to procreate, to populate the world with new humans, replacing those lost to death. But what if humans were created of man, not woman?
That's impossible.
A roguish grin. Not with science, Justine. If man created science, why can't science create man? He cocked his head. And so in Ingolstadt I began to think, what if science could create a human who'd live forever? Suddenly his eyes glittered with an unpredictability that made Justine's blood chill. I should leave, she said, rising from her chair. He grabbed her wrist. Let me finish. I know you believe me blasphemous. She yanked away her hand. You are blasphemous. Fine, I'm blasphemous. If it's any consolation, I'm a miserable wretch, haunted by a curse that shut up every avenue to enjoyment. But answer me this. Why would God allow me to discover the secret of life if not to defeat death? I truly believed this to be my fate. Justine's voice rose as she spoke. Perhaps it wasn't fate God offered you. Perhaps God only offers us free will to do what is right. Or free will to damn ourselves. Victor slumped in his seat, his face sallow. Do you know, when I set out to make him, I envisioned myself like a god, creating a new species who would bless me as their creator. He offered a sharp glance. I don't blame you for hating me, Justine. If it's any consolation, I hate myself too. I pity you more than I hate you. I'd rather you only hated me. He laughed again, a mirthless sound, but Justine was already heading toward the door. Goodbye, Victor. Wait, come back. Where are you going? I'm going to do what you're unable. Destroy your son. Gain revenge for Elizabeth. Protect the world from him before he works his mischief elsewhere. You? Victor rolled his eyes. How can you kill him? You're so small, so weak. Another laugh. So deformed. She jutted her chin. I'm stronger than you know. It's impossible for you to stop him. Justine's anger rose. No more impossible than surviving death. And with this, she departed the cell. Come back. We're not done. If you want to kill him, I know how. Come back. Victor's rants rang beyond the barred windows as she hurried away. She gritted her teeth. She ignored his shouts. She'd never return. And yet, Justine did return. A week later, once her anger cooled into desperation, she found her way back to the asylum, which was even more wretched than she recalled. As she waited for someone to answer the bell, a rooster missing half his feathers crossed her path. Justine didn't blink. The rooster seemed as nonsensical as everything else about this place. You again, a stout-bellied orderly welcomed after some minutes. Justine couldn't help notice the smear of blood across his torn linen apron. I suppose you're here for Victor Frankenstein? Yes, if you please, she replied, stomach tight. The orderly's accusing tone set her nerves ajar. Have we met before? No, but I was told to expect you. He said you'd be hard to miss. The orderly pointed at her hunchback. Justine grimaced. Don't look so upset, boy. Give me a minute. I've something for you. A package from him. Your name is Moritz, yes? My name doesn't matter. It's imperative I speak to Monsieur Frankenstein, if you please. His face cracked into an uneven grin, revealing broken teeth and blackened gums. He's no longer a resident. Justine hadn't anticipated this. Where is he, then? Surely he left an address. The orderly refused to meet her eyes. Cagey. Not exactly an address, he admitted. I was told not to say because of his family. His father was a syndic, you see. But I suppose it no longer matters. Tell me where he is. Very well. The orderly whispered. The Cimetière des Rois. That's where Victor Frankenstein abides. In a normal tone. Now, do you want the package he left, or not? Chapter 12. As night approached, I found myself at the entrance of the cemetery where William, Elizabeth, and my father reposed. I entered it and approached the tomb which marked their graves.
In the end, Justine accepted Victor's package. It was a rectangular item wrapped in butcher paper, no larger than her hands clasped together. She had no idea what the package contained, nor did she bear any curiosity. However, she knew she'd find no rest until she reached the Cimetière des Rois. Justine's thoughts chased themselves like rabbits as she approached the cemetery. Victor, dead. She still didn't believe it, even after the orderly's explanation.
5 mornings ago it happened. We found him in his room. His health must have been weaker than doctors realized.
It sounded too suspicious, too pat. She couldn't imagine Victor gone. As mad as he'd appeared when she'd last encountered him, she'd always sensed a vivid force in him that couldn't be extinguished. Wasn't this what had enabled him to create life from death? In Justine's wildest imaginings, she envisioned Victor bribing the orderly so he could escape to hunt his son. Perhaps he hoped Justine would be deterred from seeking the monster. It would be like him to want glory without another's involvement. Once she passed through the cemetery gates, her mind silenced into a dull hum. She grew too aware of the weight of his package in her hands. I won't open it. Not yet. Not until she reached Victor's grave, if indeed there was one. As Justine made her way down the promenade bisecting the cemetery, the twilight sky darkened into a dense grey that gave lie to the bright day preceding it. She recalled that New Year's morning when she'd spied Elizabeth with Henry by Caroline's grave, her first encounter with Ernest. Her eyes filled, wishing she could return to that day, before she knew of the monster, before Elizabeth's death, before Ernest and William, Henry Clerval. Now all were gone, including Alphonse. All cursed, just as she felt. Gone, she murmured. Everyone. She looked up at the sky, where a full moon was rising, setting its cool luminance across the graveyard like a blanket of light. Her footsteps rustled against the new spring grass, soft against her heels. The trees were agitated by the wind. The night was weighed by shadows. For a moment she imagined the spirits of the departed flitting across the cemetery. The long one would be Ernest, the short one William. And what of Elizabeth's spirit? Justine inhaled the scent of green from the earth. She would bear the perfume of lilies, she decided, like Caroline and the Blessed Mother. Soon Caroline's marble tomb rose before Justine's eyes, grander than she recalled. 4 new gravestones had been added in front of the memorial. She supposed the Frankenstein mausoleum had grown too crowded. The granite slabs marched in a neat line across the grass, save for the final one, which laid atop soil dark as spilled ink. Justine approached the last gravestone, her heart thumping. There it was, proof of all she refused to acknowledge. Victor Frankenstein, 1770 to 1798, son, brother, husband. Requiesce in pace. Justine was surprised by a grief that felt as dense as earth and as heavy as lead. She recalled years earlier when Victor had come upon her beneath that oak tree in Bellerive, how he'd seemed a boy prince from a fairy tale, his dark curls, his eyes flashing with intelligence, his wit and kindness. The adoration in Caroline's gaze as she smiled at her son, the affection Henry and Elizabeth bore him. This was the Victor Justine wanted to remember, not the madman she'd encountered in an asylum. Tears threatened Justine's eyes. I cannot bear this, but I must. At last, she untied the paper wrapped around Victor's package. Inside, she found a letter and a small leather pouch, which was heavier than expected. Justine, Victor had written. The strength I relied on is gone. I know I shall soon die. Not for reasons I can explain, but from an understanding of no longer possessing hope. Now that I've learned you survived him, I can let go of life to find whatever peace God may grant me. For here is the dark truth I dared not confide about the demon I created. He cannot be destroyed. In my hubris to outwit death, I granted him immortality.
No one or nothing can bring his life to a close. Not even me. It is this awareness that urges me toward death as much as my mourning for those he murdered. William, Elizabeth, Clerval. Can any man be to me as Clerval was, or any woman another Elizabeth? Will another child bear William's bright promise? I think not. All I can hope is that through my death he will at last find a measure of satisfaction in his revenge being fulfilled, and choose to endure his cursed existence without harming another living soul. Now that you possess this knowledge of his immortality, I beg you to abandon any plan to bring him to justice. You will only destroy yourself. You have been granted a second chance at life. I urge you to take advantage of it. If you look inside the enclosed pouch, you will find funds to settle far from Geneva, where no one will know your unfortunate history. I pray time will grant you some form of happiness. With this letter complete, I will set down my pen forever. Pity not my death. Instead, imagine with what ecstasy shall I join my departed friends. For I will trust in God's mercy, not his damnation. Farewell, Justine. Seek happiness and tranquility, and avoid ambition. Learn from my example, so that my name may be remembered as more than a blight. Victor Frankenstein, April 10th, 1798. Justine let the letter fall to the grave, though the pouch still awaited, a pouch whose proceeds would grant her freedom from a life of want. She untied the leather pull. The scent of lilies rose from inside it. Caroline's perfume. The pouch contained a collection of jewelry that Justine recalled had been Caroline's, a ruby necklace, diamond earrings, pearls, and more. At the very bottom, something glinted green. Elizabeth's emerald engagement ring. Victor must have removed it from her hand after death. With this, Justine recalled Elizabeth's last moments. That white handkerchief over her face. I couldn't save her life, yet she saved mine. She doubled over as though she'd been kicked in her stomach. The Frankensteins were dead, and she lived. Their murderer also lived, and she had no way to destroy him if she was to believe Victor's letter. She dared not trust the monster to be satisfied with the death of Victor. She'd witnessed firsthand the delight he'd taken in the destruction he'd sown. But now all was stolen from her, including her hope to vanquish the monster. Even those jewels seemed a mockery, for what good was wealth without friendship and love? She recalled her life before the Frankensteins, the isolation she felt, alone of her kind. Was she to return to this forever? "I can't bear this," she cried into the night. "How alone I am!" She was answered by a loud and fiendish laugh. It rang on her ears long and heavily. The mountains echoed it until she felt as if all hell surrounded her with mockery. Once the laughter died away, a well-known and abhorred voice addressed her in an audible whisper. "You are miserable. I am satisfied." She turned, and there he was, behind Victor's gravestone, towering over her. How long had the monster stood there watching her? Her despair gave way to rage. It rose inside her, bright and furious like a flame. She pulled herself from the ground to her full height. "Miserable?" she cried. "Yes, I'm miserable, for you've destroyed those closest to me." The monster folded his arms before his immense chest. "As you have for me." "Me? How so?" He set his thick hands on her shoulders. "It's your fault Victor is dead. Now that my father is gone, you've banished any satisfaction I would have gained in revenge." "This makes no sense." "Ah, but it does." He shook her until her teeth chattered in her skull. "Once he learned of your survival, he decided to die, for you'd provided him with peace. He wasn't responsible for your death after all." She tried to pull away, but he was too strong. "How is that my fault?" "You should have stayed away from Victor, but you wanted revenge of him just as I did." She met the monster's watery eyes. "You murdered Elizabeth. Isn't that enough?" "Victor murdered Elizabeth. I was only his instrument. Blame Victor, not me. And now he's killed himself." "That's not true.
Victor, a suicide? How can this be?
Don't believe me? I'd been watching my father carefully, waiting for the perfect moment to exact my revenge. A moment when he'd recovered enough to embrace hope anew. A moment when he'd recall the flowers blooming, the song of larks, the promise of spring. Then you arrived. You ruined everything. After you left, he shot himself with his father's pistol. I've no idea how he obtained it. But then again, the mad are clever. You shiver, Justine, but you don't believe me.
I don't. Suicides aren't buried in consecrated soil.
They are if the manner of their death is concealed. And now all is lost. Lost! The monster's voice rose. I yearned to see him destroyed by my might. I yearned to witness his desolation when he realized he'd never surpass my strength.
He shook her anew, this time by her neck.
I yearned to throttle him as I now do you, set my hands around his throat.
Do it then, Justine cried. Bring this wretched mockery to a close. You've already murdered everyone I cared for. You've made me a fugitive to the world, a murderess. What have I to live for?
The monster released her abruptly. She collapsed to the ground. She lay there, gasping for air, waiting, waiting. You and I, we're alike, Justine. She spat out, I am nothing like you, nothing! But you are. You don't comprehend, not yet. We're both outcasts, both miserable amid humanity, both alone in this world. Both created by Frankensteins. Monsters.
I may be a monster, but I'm born of woman and life, of nature, not of man and death, not science.
How certain you sound. The monster's voice turned caressing. This alarmed Justine more than his hands around her throat. Tell me, what were you before the Frankensteins took you in?
Unloved, unhappy, uneducated.
But Justine would never admit this. So you remained silent to avoid lying. The truth is, you were as formless as I was. Oh, I heard the chatter, the whispers. You were this puny, hunchbacked wretch no one loved. The daughter of a gravedigger, for God's sake. When your parents died, the Frankensteins took you in, educated you, gave you manners, clothes, a new manner of speaking. Even Clerval played his role, with his books and prattle of chivalry. You dared to yearn for love with that boy Ernest, friendship with Elizabeth. You craved the love of your fellow humans, as I once did. The monster yanked her back onto her feet. And now here you are, like me, alone in the world and miserable.
If you're miserable, that's your own fault. I offered to befriend you, to be your companion. I even gave you a name.
The monster took a step back as though she'd slapped him. I have no name.
I named you Emmet. That night when I promised to be your friend. Emmet, after the golem.
Emmet. For once the monster looked mournful. His eyes grew wide. He covered them with his immense hands. Perhaps he was recalling their time together in that hut overlooking the mer de glace. The patter of rain against the roof over their heads. Their conversation. Their vows. We shall be monsters, cut off from all the world. But on that account, we shall be more attached to one another. He cackled. A name. How kind, Justine. His tone darkened. As for you, I already know your fate. She raised her chin.
Murder me then. Enjoy your revenge.
His thin lips twisted into a grimace. I could have murdered you that night after Elizabeth's death. I chose not to. I felt a peculiar fondness toward you because you'd offered me kindness in your hapless manner. For you are as deformed in some ways as I am, and as unnatural. But now that you're my enemy...
What will you do?
The monster laughed again, but she sensed despair in it. I'll torment you instead.
Haven't you tormented me enough?
No, he said. Here's what we'll do, Justine. We'll play a game, a long and terrible game, one that ends with one of us dead. There is only one way to destroy me, one that my father remained unaware of in his hubris. But you'll have to catch me first. And if you catch me,
you'll tell me the secret of your death.
He nodded. And then you can destroy me.
But this wasn't enough assurance. Suddenly, Justine felt the fate of humanity depended upon the monster's immediate destruction. Now that the Frankenstein family was extinct, what if he decided to expand his revenge toward the innocent? What of future generations? Would he also curse them with violence and death? She lunged for his knees. You must tell me now!
Come after me.
Another cackle before he eluded Justine's grasp with more than mortal speed. As the monster fled the cemetery, she watched the broad disk of the moon shine upon his ghastly form. Chapter 13. I pursued him, and for many months this has been my task. Justine did not delay. She abandoned Geneva immediately in pursuit of the monster, using Caroline's jewelry to fund her mission. She brought with her the satchel from when she'd fled Lake Como. It contained a collapsible telescope, a compass, and the locket with Caroline's portrait. Guided by a slight clue, Justine followed the windings of the Rhone after the monster. When she reached the blue Mediterranean, by a strange chance she saw him hide in a vessel bound for the Black Sea. She took passage in the same ship, but he eluded her. She next traced his tracks to the wilds of Tartary and Russia. Sometimes peasants informed her of his path. Other times the monster left a mark to guide her. She continued after him, refusing to turn back even when overcome by hunger and exhaustion. Her life was miserable, but one hope sustained her, to discover the secret of his death. Sometimes she caught glimpses of the monster ahead in the forest. No matter how quickly she hurried, he remained out of reach. Other times she sensed his eyes on her while she slept. Once she awoke in the middle of the night to find him seated beside her. To her surprise, he was gently stroking her hair, which had grown long enough to curl about her cheeks. Their eyes met, his hand stilled. She felt her breath catch in her throat, her blood rise. "You!" she screamed, grabbing for his hand. "Tell me your secret!"
"Ah, but you have to catch me. Thus far I have only caught you. Come and get me, Justine."
As Justine pursued the monster, she was led by his messages, which he scratched on tree trunks and in stone.
"This way. My reign is not over, for you still live," he wrote across a boulder near a cliff's edge. In another, "Follow me north. I seek the everlasting ices of the Arctic, where you will feel the misery of cold and frost, to which I am impassive."
Soon the snows thickened and the cold increased. Justine recalled her winter on the Mer de Glace. It had been preparation for her ordeal. By then she was so far north that it had been weeks since she'd seen any of Napoleon's soldiers. She encountered peasants shut inside hovels and rivers too frozen for fish. Just when she could go no further, the monster would leave offerings of food. A letter tucked inside a skinned hair taunted, "Prepare, eat this and be refreshed. Your toils only begin. Soon your suffering will satisfy my need for revenge." Justine's perseverance was invigorated by his words. She resolved not to fail. She procured a sledge and dogs to travel the snows with greater speed, and clothes sewn of reindeer and wolf skins. Her ensemble was completed by a rabbit fur cloak and metal goggles to avoid snow blindness. By the time she reached the Northern Ocean, the monster was less than a single day's journey ahead, judging by the condition of a recently slaughtered seal he'd left her. She pressed on, and in 2 days' time arrived at a wretched hamlet on the shore, where a band of wary rustics emerged from their hovels at her arrival. "Where have you come from, stranger?" a bone-thin girl encased in furs asked Justine in rudimentary Russian. Justine had picked up enough of the language during her travels to survive. "Geneva." Justine could barely recall the city republic's blue lake and majestic mountains. All the world was snow and ice.
"Alas, Geneva no longer exists as it was," an elderly man clucked. "It's now part of France. Napoleon."
"No matter, sir. My goal is to seek the one who fled from me."
And did the man you pursue travel in the same fashion as you on the ice?
Yes.
Then I fancy we have seen him.
The hamlet's inhabitants described a gigantic demon who'd arrived the night before armed with pistols. He'd stolen a sled, all their firewood, and 6 dogs before taking off across the frozen sea.
He was heading toward the North Pole, a young man with a scarred cheek explained. Earlier this year, a ship tried to sail there, claiming it's a land of sunshine and eternal spring, a Garden of Eden. It's not.
Justine resisted despair. Again, the monster had eluded her. Now she would commence an almost endless journey across the Arctic amid cold few could endure. Yet at the fear that he should live, her hunger for vengeance returned. It overwhelmed her like a mighty tide. "Tell me what I must do to survive," she begged. She listened humbly and desperately. Once they finished their explanation, she said, "I need a similar sled fashioned for the frozen sea, food, and whatever else you recommend." To pay for these provisions, she offered her most precious possession besides Caroline's locket, Elizabeth's emerald ring. She departed, taking to heart the advice she'd received. Days passed in a blur of white and cold. At night, she slept surrounded by her dogs for warmth. And then, at last, she found him. By the amount of food she'd consumed, she judged it had been 3 weeks since she left the hamlet when she caught sight of a dark speck upon the frozen plain. She pulled off her goggles for a better view with her collapsible telescope. A sleigh borne by dogs, like hers, the distorted proportions of a well-known form within it. "It's him," she shouted with all her might. "Wait for me, please!" Her words were buoyed across the ice on the wind. In her telescope, she saw the monster glance her way. She imagined his grim smile, his cackle. Her dogs began to bark. Her tears froze. Then the worst happened. The ice beneath her split and cracked with a tremendous sound. She saved all but 2 of her dogs when her sled slid into the ocean, along with everything but her satchel and snowshoes. Miraculously, she remained dry. Once the ice refroze, Justine freed the surviving dogs to find their way. She opened her satchel. She still had food, 3 days' worth. The lens had cracked on her telescope and her compass scratched. Fortunately, the miniature of Caroline remained intact. Perhaps she's with me. She began to walk, her toes and cheeks too numb for pain. 3 days. That's all I have. The first day passed. The landscape transformed into one unlike any she'd seen. Open, endless, cold. The sky shimmered with unnatural colors she'd never before witnessed. Stars rose, offering constellations to guide her path. She managed to steal a few hours' rest. The second day arrived. She staggered back on her feet. The muscles of her thighs burned, her toenails peeled from their beds of flesh. Frostbite. She'd been warned of it. Her arms ached from holding them aloft for balance. During the worst of it, she slipped face first when her snowshoe snagged on a pebble of ice. Blood marred the white of the snow. Her face reflected back to her. A loose tooth, a split lip, scars along the side of her cheek, her brow, eyes swollen around her goggles from the cold, nose battered, bruises on her jaw. A monster. Same as she'd been, but more so. She spat out the tooth. She forced herself upright, arms again aloft. And then she can continue no more. She recalls her hanging, which left her neck miraculously intact, the bullet from Victor's pistol that should have killed her. 2 deaths she's survived. Now a 3rd death awaits her, this one by ice. She can no longer deny it. This will be my 3rd death since I became a monster. She slides back to the ice. The sun is high, blinding despite her goggles. She squints out from beneath her hood, calculating the angle, the hour. It's December. Toward the end of 1799, she reminds herself, the words as loose as the remaining teeth in her mouth. Nearly the start of a new century. A century in which a king and his queen no longer have heads, and the French reign over Geneva, aided by that ambitious general from Corsica. She draws a deep breath. I am still alive. I still breathe. I still possess a body. And I have only 1 day's worth of food. Victor was right. The monster will survive. She's destroyed herself for naught. She feels as foolish as a housewife who spent coins meant for meat on seeds. The proximity to the shift of century makes the death she anticipates seem especially unfair. Couldn't she remain alive a little longer, to see if the earth will snap open like a cuckoo clock to announce the new century? But she won't weep. Her tears would only freeze inside her goggles. You win, she shouts into the wind. I hope you're happy. Her voice echoes back from the emptiness. She sits on her knees and opens her satchel. May as well eat what remains. As she shoves the last of the dried seal into her mouth, acid rises from her stomach, dank and bitter. But she doesn't vomit. Every tale must come to an end. I suppose this is mine. She lets her body go soft. Frost radiates to her heart, her womb as she settles against her bed of ice. Her muscles shudder, pulse slows. And then her mind returns to Geneva, to a time before it all began, before she knew of the Frankensteins. That night when she stumbled into their garden, the one surrounding the house set a league east of Geneva. She remembers it all. She watches it all. It all unfolds like a tale as the snow begins anew. But it's not only her history she recalls. It's everyone's. She sees Caroline in her bed, Elizabeth with Henry, and so much more, as though her body has become a repository for collective memory, for story. Then the unexpected occurs. Justine's fur cloak undulates. Her bare cheek meets warmth, the warmth of life. A fox, whiskers twitching, pale eyes like hers. His fur is mottled white, white like the ice, white like snow. He nuzzles at her neck, the last place in her body bearing any heat. Come, darling, she whimpers. Closer. Suddenly the wind howls so loud she's forced to cover her ears. Worse, the wind is accompanied by the thickest snow she's ever witnessed, mottled like churned cream. Her body shakes, chest heaves. She yearns to scream. She doesn't, for just as unexpectedly the snow settles. The fox is gone. And then there before her, all of them, Elizabeth, Caroline, Ella, more, a host of women, all bearing wounds and bruises and scars and violations and curses, an army of females, even Justine's mother and sister. Her mother approaches from the crowd to offer Justine a harsh glare. The line is endless, extending all the way toward the horizon. All unnatural creatures, if one believes the testimony of men. The women's bodies appear pale as ice and as faint as shades. Their voices are sinuous, seductive. Free us, they murmur. You know what to do. I really must be dying. What do you want of me? Justine shouts. Tell me! Caroline and Elizabeth step forward to point toward the horizon. It takes Justine a moment, but she understands. A red, flickering speck in the distance. Her heart rises. Let it be him. The speck grows longer than a sled, taller than a house, brighter than the sun. Her heart pounds. It must be him. She tries to run, but it's impossible. The surface is too slick even for snowshoes. Desperate, she grabs the telescope from her satchel. Through the cracked lens, she makes out the irrefutable evidence of fire. A bonfire. A creature taller than a man created by woman. It's him. As she tramps toward the monster, she imagines another world, an idyllic world akin to what that villager spoke of when he described the North Pole, an Eden infused by sunshine and eternal spring. She recalls Ernest's desire for a new world after the Revolution, one built on ideals of equality and liberty. Then there's Victor's dream of a world without death or loss. But none of these worlds can be glimpsed in this land of ice she inhabits. Men are dreamers, she thinks. They expect women to clean their messes. And Justine has one last mess to clean, one she has travelled far and wide to fulfill. Though she understands she has no reason to trust Victor's monster will disclose the secret of his death, she hopes. Here in the Arctic, hope remains her most prized possession. He must honour his promise. Chapter 14. Great God, what a scene has just taken place! I am yet dizzy with the remembrance of it. I hardly know whether I shall have the power to detail it. Yet the tale which I have recorded would be incomplete without this. In the far north, distances are mirages. Mirages disappear when approached by a monster of a woman wearing snowshoes and a rabbit fur cloak. Sooner than Justine can believe, the bonfire grows larger than she imagined, taller and closer. It resembles the hell her mother described to set the fear of God into Justine's soul. The heat of the bonfire singes her cheeks. It's a miracle the ice hasn't melted beneath the flames, quenching them in frigid water. And then he is there. Him, the monster, Victor's son. What had she called him, that name? Emmet. It was so long ago, another life, another world. How fanciful she'd been, how foolish. He's no golem created to serve humanity like she'd once served Caroline and Elizabeth. He's a nightmare brought to life to serve out death. The monster is lying before the fire. Beside him, a line of plump silvery fish hang from a tall pole, their translucent flesh crackling from heat. Justine ignores the food, as ravenous as she is. It's the monster who claims her attention. He's rolled into a ball, like an enormous fetus sprung from a womb, a baby grown amok. His clothes, or what remains of them, are blackened with ash. Most of his body is bared. The scars and burns she'd previously witnessed are all the more hideous to behold. He's even more gigantic in stature than she recalls, yet more uncouth and distorted in his proportions. His face is concealed by locks of black, ragged hair. One vast hand is extended, its colour and texture like that of a mummy. It rests over his eyes. Is he sleeping? Not if I can help it. Justine's anger rises as high as the bonfire he's built. "You!" she cries, in tones more passionate than she's ever wielded in her life. She kicks his leg. "Honour your word!" The monster draws his hand from his eyes. Justine nearly falls to her knees. Perhaps it's because she hasn't seen him up close in nearly a year. This is how long they've been trapped in their folly of an Arctic chase, that she's horrified anew by him. Never has she beheld a vision as hideous as him, of such loathsome yet appalling ugliness. And yet it's his crimes she recalls most. How had she ever felt sympathy for him, invited him to befriend her in that hut on the Mer de Glace? His dun-hued gaze awaits her. A trickle of moisture covers his cheeks. Miraculously, it remains unfrozen. This stirs her fury to greater heights. "What reason have you to shed tears?" she demands, her arms akimbo. "I weep because you're not my final victim. I thought you dead. You live, Justine." Her chest begins to thump, quickening. She won't reveal her fear. "Let me guess. You intend to kill me instead of honouring our pact." He shakes his head. "You don't comprehend, Justine. If you'd become another murder by my hands, I would not have been able to bear it." Justine's arms fall to her sides. "You're happy to see me alive? But you wanted my death. You wanted revenge." "I couldn't help my cruelty. When I saw you in the cemetery, all I thought of was Victor gone, my father dead. It was sorrow I felt for the loss. I couldn't bear it. Yet again, he'd found a way to abandon me. I know you don't believe me." "I don't believe you." "I know you think me irredeemable, that I'm cursed by my unnatural creation. Think you the groans of Clerval were music to my ears? The tears of William? Believe me when I say my heart was fashioned to be susceptible of love and friendship." "Which I offered you." Justine interjects, her head light. And which I could not accept, for I was too miserable and wretched. After the murder of Clerval, I returned to Switzerland, resolved to remain away from all humanity, for I abhorred myself. Yet when I met you on the Mer de Glace, I entertained the possibility of change. I thought, here is one as miserable and apart from the world as I am. I shall offer her comfort in her isolation. But once I learned who you were, that even you, who appeared as scorned by humanity as myself, bore connections to Victor Frankenstein and his family, I understood redemption could never be mine. He pauses to draw a deep breath. It is true I am a wretch. I murdered the lovely and the helpless. I strangled the innocent as they slept, and those who never injured me or any other living thing. The monster's words are overtaken by sobs of the most violent variety, which sets the bonfire blazing from their force. Justine backs away to avoid singeing her flesh. "Yes, you are a wretch," she shouts. "You've drawn me hundreds of leagues north to whine over the desolation you made. You throw a torch into a pile of kindling," she gestures at the bonfire flaming behind them, "and when they are consumed, you sit among the ruins and weep." "That is not true," he cries. "It is not thus. Not thus. Yet such must be the impression conveyed by my actions." "Liar! You murdered Elizabeth. How can you claim otherwise?" Now it is Justine's turn to be overcome by sobs, though no tears emerge to warm her cheeks. It's too frigid. "Elizabeth was the kindest creature to ever draw breath. She was my only friend. She saved me when I could not save myself." "I could not help it, Justine. When I discovered that Frankenstein, the reason for my existence and its torments, dared to enjoy passions he had barred me, my envy and indignation filled me with an insatiable thirst for vengeance. When I swore to be with Elizabeth on Frankenstein's wedding night, I was the slave of an impulse I detested but could not disobey. Yet when she died—" A long groan rises from him. "I was not miserable, for evil had become my good, especially after I discovered you'd intervened with my revenge on Frankenstein." Emptied at last of language, the monster wipes his eyes. The frigid wind blows about them. The flames from the bonfire flicker, a rain of ash. "And now here we are," Justine prompts, "and here it shall end. You will keep your vow. You will reveal the secret of your death." He points toward the bonfire. "That's all," he says. Fire. Justine shouldn't have been surprised, but she is. She'd expected the secret of the monster's mortality to be as convoluted as the explanations she read in Victor's journal, or as alchemical as Henry's tale of the golem. But it makes sense. He was born of lightning. Now he shall die in flames. "This bonfire will destroy me," the monster confesses. "It shall be my funeral pyre. I shall no longer feel the agonies tormenting me. Nor shall I see the sun or stars, or feel the winds play on my cheeks. Light, feeling, and sense will pass away. And in this condition I will find peace. Some years ago, when I first felt the warmth of summer and heard the warbling of the birds, and these were all new to me, I should have wept to die. Now it is my only consolation. And yet, his long arms dangle by his side. Snow falls from his cheeks, frozen tears. Despite herself, Justine's throat tightens. She recalls mornings in Lake Como, the dazzle of light on the lake, the beauty when she'd awakened to life after her hanging, the flight of orioles, the fox dashing in the woods, the lush scent of summer roses. But I am not him. I am good. Yet she feels a compassion for him she never expected. She recalls her gravedigger father, who loved her in spite of her mother's rejection. "If only your father loved you." "I suppose you'll offer to be my friend again." His tone is mocking, though his eyes remain wet. His gaze dashes toward the pyre. He's afraid, terrified. She says, "I'll be your mother then." The words emerge from her lips before she can think on them. But as soon as she says them, she knows they are the right words. She approaches him. He doesn't rebuff her when she gathers him in her arms. She sings, though her voice is harsh. The song is a lullaby she'd used to soothe William way back when. Her voice rises into the frozen sky, summoning a mound of ash from his funeral pyre to her side. As Justine sings, she's back in Geneva on that summer night, surrounded by Victor, Henry, and Caroline. There's Victor speaking of ghost stories, Caroline refusing. Not ghost stories, something else. Justine offering her own story, the tale of the golem. It's one my father told me of his childhood in Prague. The others didn't believe her, she could tell. But Henry, kind, noble Henry, defended her. He was called Emet, which means truth in the ancient language of the Hebrews. This was the word the rabbi had written on his forehead to bring him to life. But what of his death? This was Victor, eager as ever for knowledge. Henry explained, to destroy him, the rabbi removed the letter E from Emet, which created the word met, death. Justine blinks, and she returns to the present moment in which she's seated on a bank of ice in the Arctic with a sobbing monster in her arms. And then she knows what she must do. He nuzzles her breast, eyes shut tight. "Mother," he moans, "help me." "I will, my child. I promise." The ash coating the ice is soft and grey. It coats her fingertips after she removes her glove. She smudges his forehead with ash, recalling the Ash Wednesdays of her youth, the lush scent of Easter lilies, the promise of resurrection. But it's not a cross she's marked across the monster's scarred brow. Emet, she's written. Once I remove this first letter, you will cease to exist, she explains, not quite believing herself, but it's all she has to offer. Shall I? After a moment, Emet shakes his head. He pulls away. No, I shan't make you a murderess. He kisses her cheek, and then he embraces her for what she understands is a last time. He rises from her arms. He squares his shoulders. Step by step, Emet approaches his funeral pyre. His dark, luxuriant hair catches first, brilliant as lightning in a summer sky. His rags flare next, then the tips of his fingers. Justine forces herself to watch as the fire consumes him, determined to bear witness, for this is what survivors do. The pyre swooshes and grows, dazzling in golds, silver, and scarlets. Flames flare to the sky. The wind rises and rushes, knocking Justine to her feet. She watches and wonders and waits. Half a century later, when she is an old woman surrounded by family and memories, she'll speak of what she watched that day on the ice, though no one will believe her. She'll confess she wondered whether Emet would emerge from the fire reborn like a phoenix. She'll tell how she waited by the pyre for any sign of his survival, the silhouette of an arm, the echo of a cry. She'll confide she found nothing, only the hush of wind blowing ash, the distant crack of ice. He's gone. Justine is surprised by sorrow, yet also freed. Whatever curse she'd sensed has been banished. Now she must save herself. But how? She stares down at her snowshoe-clad feet. She'll leave the way she came. Somehow she'll find a whaling vessel. From there she'll find her way home, wherever that may be. In the meantime, she won't starve. She sets Emet's catch of silvery fish inside her satchel, rummages through his belongings. She'll survive. These acts done, she begins to walk toward the horizon, toward the sea, where her new life awaits. She was soon borne away on the ice and lost in light and distance. Thank you for listening to Unnatural Creatures, a novel of the Frankenstein women, written by Kris Waldherr, narrated by Barrie Kreinik, a member of SAG-AFTRA. Produced by One Night Stand Studios. Post-production by Kyle Verville. Text copyright 2022 by Muse Publications LLC. Production copyright 2022 by Muse Publications LLC. All rights reserved.